Over the past few years of making Rimworld content, the most asked questions I have ever get is what mods do you use, what mod pack are you using, and can I get a link to it? Now back in the day when I used to do playthroughs, I always put a link of my mod packs in the description so it would take you to the Steam Workshop page for it. Looking at those mod lists, they are awful. Honestly, I'm ashamed that I made mod packs like that back in the day. They're massive, they're bloated, they're not user friendly, and they're not even experienced player friendly. They are generally awful. Now in most recent times, I've taken more of an interest in the modding community, and I generally speaking know vaguely what I'm doing nowadays, and I wanted to give my information back to the community in the form of an extremely bare basics yet efficient mod pack that enhances vanilla gameplay whilst providing a stable experience for just any player, new, old, experienced and not experienced. The mod pack I wanted to give you guys and to the community was just going to be covering the bare bones of giving you a better gameplay experience. So because this is more of a bare bones mod pack here, there might be some mods I've not included. There's a couple of mods here that I don't necessarily think are necessary, but they are essential to me, and that's going to be very important. This is going to be my essentials list. This is my essentials list that I've used over the years, and it's what I'm currently using at the moment, and it's an experience that I've curated myself. So if you have any recommendations for other mods that I could potentially add to this list, put them down in the comment sections and we can kind of learn together here. So the way this video is going to be structured is that firstly, I'm going to show you exactly how this mod performs in a colony playthrough. I played a 4-year colony here, and it took me a hell of a long time to get through everything, and I experienced as much as I could within vanilla Rimworld and all its DLCs. So that's the first thing we're going to be covering here, is how this mod pack actually works in game, how I'm going to be setting things up, and how I'm going to be basing my opinions as to the way it works. So when it comes to setting up this mod pack for the first time, me personally, I will be recommending everybody to use RimPy when they go to do this. It makes things really easy for setting up various different mod packs, auto sorting everything, and it's just a better way of doing things, especially if you want to trial lots of different mods and things like I do. It's an amazingly easy user interface for you to get along with. Now I did test this mod pack with just vanilla Rimworld and not using the RimPy stuff, and I did have a couple of mod errors come up, but they didn't affect gameplay. So everything you'll be seeing in terms of what I'm showing you today will be based off me loading Rimworld using RimPy. I do recommend it for this mod pack, but it's not necessary. I'll be linking a video in the description for how to set up RimPy and how to download it if you wanted to use it yourself, but like I said, it's not as necessary if you don't want to do it. I personally recommend it though. So loading into the mod pack for the first time in dev mode so we can see what the log looks like. As you can see, it's pretty clean. There isn't really very many red colors here, and if they are, they're pretty irrelevant. I don't know much about reading the log, and I don't really understand what the errors are and what I'm looking for, but everything seemed to work fine. Nothing was missing out, nothing was causing bugs or anything. Everything seemed to be okay. So I'm going to be taking this as a pretty clean log here. So loading into my colony and my playthrough that I did for the test for this mod pack, I want to reiterate what I'm actually going to be doing for these tests. I'm going to be using every single DLC, biotech, anomaly, royalty, ideologian. We're going to be dabbling into each and every one of those. I'm going to be taking part of those DLCs and actually implementing them into this playthrough in an attempt to push the game to its limit. I'm going to be taming animals, taking on new colonists, crafting lots of things, building lots of things. I want to be able to push this mod pack to its limits whilst also hoping that it gives a good gameplay experience here. So everything that you'll be seeing in the next few clips here will be me pushing things as much as I physically can within a real playthrough. I haven't staged everything, I haven't forced anything. This is all from natural gameplay, which I mean, that's what everybody's going to be doing unless you're going to be taking this mod pack and putting it into a themed playthrough. So generally, looking at the way the game runs, we're going to be basing pretty much everything off the FPS and the TPS. Frames per second and ticks per second. The ticks per second are going to actually affect how our colonists are doing jobs, how fast they're going to be doing it, and how the game itself actually runs. And then the FPS is frames per second. I mean, it's going to be choppy or it's not going to be choppy. So at the end of the first year and after 60 days, what have I accomplished? I've started dabbling in the royalty DLC and the ideology DLC, but that's about it at this current stage. The first year of Rimworld for most players, including myself, is basically about setting up a base and getting things sorted, starting on crafting, starting on growing and getting a stable income. Looking at the TPS and the FPS, we're maxing out on TPS at 60 and we're roughly hitting about 100 frames per second, very good. At 2x speed, we're then going to be maxing things out at 180 TPS again, and once again hitting about 90 frames up to 100, and there's a little bit of deviation. pushing things up to 3 times speed. We're once again maxing out on TPS and getting roughly anywhere from 65 to about 80 frames per second. And then on dev mode with the 4x speed, we are once again maxing things out to 900 TPS and roughly hitting about 40 to 50 to 60 FPS depending on what's going on. So first year, gameplay is running very standardly. It all makes sense, nothing's being pushed too far, nothing's been involved yet. This is exactly what I'm expecting. Moving on to the end of the second year, a lot changed in this playthrough. I explored further into the royalty DLC and set up one of our colonists as a royalty. I started doing the biotech DLC with getting all mechanoids and everything. I actually went further into the ideology DLC and I set up a dryad patch as well. I hadn't used dryads in an age and I thought that'd be a very good test to see how they worked yet. I haven't yet got into the anomaly DLC at this stage because I mean it's more of a mid to late game DLC. Looking at how things were running, at 1 time speed we're once again maxing out on TPS and then we're getting roughly 60 FPS. At 2x speed, we're once again maxing out on TPS and getting again roughly 60 FPS. At 3x speed, we're maxing out on TPS again and then going around 40 to 50 FPS. And on 4x speed in dev mode, we're then going anywhere from 800 to 850 TPS and then 30 FPS. So after 2 years in game, we've seen our first dip in performance here and not getting the maximum 900 TPS whilst we're exploring every single DLC. We've got animals, we've got colonists, there's a lot going on here. So once again, this is expected. Getting well over 800 TPS and sometimes touching 900 TPS is still very good for a 2-year playthrough, doing as much as humanly possible. At the end of the third year, this is where things get pretty crazy. We're doing even more with the royalty DLC. We've actually got 2 royals on the go at the same time at this current stage. Doing more of the biotech stuff, we're just making more mechanoids. We didn't unfortunately get an opportunity to do anything with sanguiphages. We've also dabbled even further into the ideology DLC as well, expanding our dryads and maxing it out. And we've actually started doing things with the anomaly DLC and attempting to cage up anomalies and do things with those. We've also expanded our farms massively. We've doubled in the amount of colonists. We've been growing drugs and making them and doing all those fantastic things and expanding the base hugely. So a lot has been undertaken between year 2 and year 3. Looking at how the game runs, once again, we are maxing out at 60 TPS at 1x speed and then hitting 60 FPS. At 2x speed, we're maxing out on TPS again and hitting anywhere from 50 to 60 FPS. At 3x speed, we're maxing out again, but there's a little bit of deviance depending on what's going on, and there's averaging roughly 30 FPS. And at 4x speed, this is a slightly larger drop than I was anticipating, honestly, and we're going from 20 FPS anywhere from 550 to 650, maybe even 700 TPS depending on the situation in 4x speed. Once again, bearing in mind how much we're actually undertaking, it's still a very good playthrough, honestly, in terms of performance. There are probably ways that I could optimize things even further and stack things up differently, but this is still very good. And then lastly, year 4, the final year of gameplay here. And as you can see from looking at the base, not much has honestly changed. Between year 3 and year 4, I had a lot of raids, I had a lot of things going on, and unfortunately I couldn't do too much for expanding the base. I did, however, get further into the anomaly DLC. I captured a couple of anomalies. They went haywire and went off and ate some people, but that was neither here nor there. I focused on a lot of crafting here, making my colonists actually better. I ended up losing a colonist, but at the same time I got even more mechanoids, got further into the royalty DLC, and just experienced Rimworld more. So the final stats at the end of year 4, we are once again comfortably hitting 60 TPS and maxing out on FPS quite comfortably. At 2x speed, we are once again maxing out on TPS and then hitting anywhere from 50 to 60 FPS. On 3x speed, we're maxing out on TPS sometimes and then getting about 30 FPS. And then at 4x speed, which I think is honestly really impressive for a 4-year colony, we're getting anywhere from about 500 to 650 TPS depending on what's going on, with about 20 FPS. So for a 4-year colony that's doing every single DLC, that's also using some modded stuff, I think this is really impressive. Obviously for your playthroughs, you're not going to use every single DLC. You're not going to necessarily use dryads. You're not going to necessarily use the biotech mechanoids. Yes, unfortunately in my test, I didn't use sanguiphages and I didn't really get into the genetic stuff, unfortunately. That was because this was a natural playthrough. I did things that were naturally appropriate to what was going on, which is what most people will also be doing. I'd imagine if you didn't do the biotech stuff with mechanoids and you didn't have dryads, this would be running even better because that wouldn't be taken into account. So as you can see, this mod pack that I've curated runs extremely well, no matter how late into the game you're going to be going, and despite how many colonists I've got and everything else that's going on, everything is going very well. So let's get into what actual mods I've added to this mod pack. Now from my count, there is 31 mods that have been added by this mod pack. Some of them are more essential than others, some of them you might not like, and some of them you'll think, why have you got them here? There's a lot of these mods here that I personally think are essential rather than being an essential for every single player. There are alternatives that you can use depending on what your preference is, and there are some mods that you might want just completely removed, and there's a couple of those towards the end of this list. So the first mod on the list is Actung. Actung by Brains is an incredible mod that allows you to move your colonists around in a more efficient way, also allows you to force them to do work when they don't necessarily want to. An incredible mod that makes the quality of life so much better. Next we have the Allow tool. Honestly, I've never not used this mod in a mod pack. It just is so handy. You can just press one button and it'll immediately allow every single item on the map. It's incredibly helpful when you're going off on raids and things and you want to allow all the items, or when loot you have lots of raiders that go down and you want to pick up all of their stuff. And also it adds the ability to haul urgently. This mod is honestly a lifesaver for when you've got raw meat or something that's about to go off that's out in the wild. You can go pick it up and immediately get it back into your stockpiles and safe. This is an absolute must. The next mod is Bed Rest for food poisoning, and honestly this mod was so under my radar when I was initially making this video, and then I added it and I was like, oh my god, this is a life changer. There's nothing worse than when you've got a colonist with food poisoning that decides that they need to haul a dead body from the opposite side of the map, get halfway back, go down, and then die to a mad rabbit or something. This mod is so much better for time saving and just having more efficient colonists. Next we have Build from Inventory. This one is extremely self-explanatory, allows colonists to build from what stuff they've got in their inventory so they can pick up multiple items and then build from it immediately rather than hauling it to the place and then building it there. And then next we have Character Editor. This is one of the big two character editors that we have in Rimworld. This one is my personal preference, however. From all the previous series that I've ever done on this channel and various stories I've created, this mod has allowed me to save and store these characters to reuse for various different timelines and stories, and to be able to expand the universe further by being able to reuse the characters without having to go through this strenuous process of just recreating them. I love all the different ways that I can change my character within this mod, and it's super efficient for just getting things done. I can change every single stat super easily, and despite it maybe not having the most user-friendly interface, I like that in a weird way. I like that it's a little bit more difficult to access because it feels like it's actually doing the job properly. The next mod on the list here is the Community Framework mod. Now, personally, I don't actually know what it does, but for some reason, I had this on every single mod list that I'd ever done. It was on this. This mod was part of these mod lists. Now, I don't know what it does. Like I said, I got no idea, but I assume it does something, and there's a reason why it's here. So I'm going to be including this one unless somebody can clarify what it actually does and whether I actually need it. Next, we have the Compact He-Diffs mod. This is an incredible mod that changes the way your colonist health bar looks, making it smaller, making it more compact, making it more efficient so it doesn't take up more space. You can also change it around to make it take up more space if you really want to. The big change here for me that I think is just game-changing is the way that it changes the color of the infection bar when your colonists have gone down. Honestly, this is the biggest one for me. It makes it so much more easy to read, and it doesn't take up too much of my screen that I don't know what's going on. The entire change with having it so infections are easier to track is game-changing. You honestly will never look back. Next, I have Complex Jobs. This is a very interesting mod because it's a mod that I always add to mod packs halfway through. It's a mod that I think that I don't necessarily need because the vanilla stuff's good enough. Then I don't use it, and then I struggle so hard. The whole premise of this is just adds more jobs and makes things a little bit more intricate so you can micromanage your colonists just that little bit more. Next, we have the Auto Links mod. Honestly, I hadn't realized how much I depended on this mod until I worked out what it actually did. This mod basically adds hyperlinks within the descriptions of items, linking them to other items. Something that I've always thought was vanilla Rimworld because I've always used it in every single mod pack. This mod is so good. So the next mod on my recommendations here is the Designator Shapes mod. This is one of the few times I've ever actually been influenced by someone. It was when I was watching a Mr. Samuel streamer video, probably about a year ago now, and I saw him draw a perfect rectangle with this mod, and it just allowed you to draw circles and squares super easily. And I was influenced to get this mod, and honestly, I've never looked back. This is an essential for me, and honestly, I'd probably cry if I had to play a playthrough without it. The next mod that we've got coming up is the Destroy Item mod. Very, very simple. It just allows you to destroy any item. Sometimes there are things in the way that you just need to get rid of. Sometimes there's one too many things and you just want to get rid of it and you can't be bothered to process it into something else. Very, very handy early game if you've got too many dead bodies stacking up, and very, very handy late game when you've got too many raiders just taking up too much space. This is one of those mods that you kind of chuck in and very rarely use, but when you do, it's super, super handy. Next, we have Drag Select. This is another one of those few times I was influenced, funnily enough, by Mr. Samuel streamer again. Can you tell I'm a fan? This was one of the videos that I saw when he just drag selected on a trader menu, and I was just blown away. Gone are the days of manually selecting every single thing you want to buy and every single thing you want to sell. This just makes life so much easier. One of those things that I can't believe isn't vanilla. Then we've got Dub's Performance Analyzer. This is definitely an essential mod if you're planning on building a bigger mod pack and you don't know how mods are going to run. For example, when I did one of my playthroughs called Manifest Destiny, I heavily used Dub's Performance Analyzer to find the best mix of mods so I could get the most out of my playthrough in terms of content, whilst also getting a good experience in terms of TPS and FPS. Dub's Performance Analyzer is a little bit more advanced, and I don't necessarily recommend it if you're a newer player and you don't want to add this mod, but it's definitely something for more experienced players that want to get the absolute most out of performance. Next we have Harmony, and I mean, literally every mod that I've mentioned here uses Harmony in one way or another. There's a reliance for Harmony somewhere or other, and this is probably the best ever mod for Rimworld without a doubt, because everything runs off Harmony. Harmony is love, Harmony is life. Next we have Healer Mech Choice. This is one of those mods that, honestly, before I knew it existed, I kind of hated Healer Mech Serums. What would end up happening in my playthroughs is I'd pick up a Healer Mech Serum, I'd use it on a colonist that was missing an arm, and all of a sudden his malnutrition would be cured. And I would be so angry, and I'd be sitting there thinking, I wish you died of starvation now, rather than anything else. This is one of those mods that you could argue is a little bit too modded for a more essentials mod pack here, but the way it allows you to just choose what you want healed is just so essential for having a long-term playthrough. Next we have Hugs Lib, and like with Harmony, this is another one of those essential mods that just allows so many other mods to work perfectly. You've got to have this, like this and Harmony are essentials. And the next mod on this list here is going to be the Inject Genes mod. It does what it says on the tin. It allows your colonists to drink up gene packs like their apple juices, and you don't have to use all of the gene stuff within your playthroughs. This is so handy for when you've just bought a gene pack from a trader, you've got nowhere to store it, but it's a gene you desperately want. Yes, your colonists then do go into an xenogermination coma for a couple of days as a balancing thing, but it means you don't have to have all of the individual buildings and items to just be able to maintain these gene packs safely. This for me is an incredible mod for when you want to dabble in genetics and you don't want to go fully into it. Next we have Injured Carry, and this one for me is an essential. Same situation as it is with the bed rest with food poisoning. I don't want a colonist that's missing half a leg stumbling their way back to your hospital when they could be carried back so much easier. This is a mod that you don't realize you need until you've used it. Then we have Pick Up and Haul. This is a mod that allows your colonists to pick up more than just the one item that they're planning on hauling. If there's a collection of items around them, they will pick up all of them all at once. Makes for a lot more efficient hauling, which is fantastic. Next, moving on, we have Replace Stuff. This mod is, I don't understand how this isn't vanilla. All this mod does means you can place structures on top of other structures and it will replace them for you automatically, deconstructing them and then reconstructing them with your chosen material. I cannot fathom how a mod as simple as this is not base game, because it is just so essential. Like, I cannot see a world where this mod does not make your life easier and doesn't change the vanilla stuff. This is just perfect. This mod is perfect. Next we have the RimPy Mod Manager database. Like I said in the RimPy section at the beginning of this video, you don't necessarily need to use RimPy for this mod pack. If you choose to, yes, you do need the RimPy Mod Manager database, But if you don't choose to install RimPy and just want to use it with the vanilla auto sort and all the features that come with that, then you don't need this one. This one is up to you. Next we have Rocketman Performance Mod. This has been historically my favorite performance mod going alongside with Dub's Performance Analyzer. I don't actually know what Rocketman does. Honestly, I looked it up on Reddit once and somebody recommended this and I've had it downloaded ever since. I've never not used Rocketman and it's been something that I've just always used to make my gameplay run smoother. So I'm going to recommend it to you guys as well because it works for me, so it must work for you. Next we have Smart Speed. This mod basically adds the 4x speed function and it is genuinely so huge for when you've got those quiet moments, you're just waiting for your colonists to finish crafting something or you're waiting for them to sow a field and you honestly don't have time to wait for that. Speeding things up to the absolute maximum of 900 TPS is so handy. And then the next mod that I'm going to be showing you is one that you don't necessarily need. Parts of this mod, in my opinion, are a little bit more essential than others, but I thought this mod as a whole kind of covered all the bases, so I've thrown it in. This mod is going to be Tactic Owl. This is a mod that adds run and gun, dual wield, and search and destroy. These are all three things that come in separate mods that you can find on the Steam Workshop page, and I could have thrown in each individual mod here, but I just wanted a mod that just did everything. Personally, run and gun is definitely an essential. Search and destroy, slightly less of an essential, and then dual wield is kind of whatever, you could kind of use it or not. This is a mod that you could take parts of it, disable them, re-enable them, and still have a great time regardless. At this current moment in time, however, Tactic Owl is a little bit on the buggier side, and I did experience some issues with it, so I've thrown it into this mod pack because of how easy it is to access, but if you want a less buggy experience, just choose either run and gun, search and destroy, or the dual wield mod that's on the Steam Workshop page. The next mod I'm going to be recommending to you guys is going to be Camera Plus. Nothing screams Rimworld more than a mod that allows you to zoom in on a mod being torn to death by a mad squirrel or just being absolutely obliterated by a triple rocket launcher. This mod is Rimworld, and it is a mod that I have never not used in any video, any playthrough. This is an essential. Lastly, we have What's That Mod. This is a mod that me as a content creator is absolutely essential to know where all of my modded items are from, and if you are a experienced player or a new player that wants to delve into a larger mod packs that add more content, this mod is fantastic for knowing where it's come from so you can know exactly what's going wrong, if it's going wrong, and where things are going to be coming from and where they're going to be linked up with. So there we have it. That is my essential mod pack for 2024 and probably 2025 and 2026. Pretty much every single mod that I've listed is consistently updated and kept up to date with the most recent versions of Rimworld, so I'd imagine this mod pack will work if you're watching this in 2025 or 2026. Everything that I've showed here today, in my opinion, is essential. Obviously, there are mods that you can change around, swap about, you can add new mods in, but this mod pack, for me, adds just the right amount of content and just the right amount of quality of life changes that I can still experience Rimworld in the way it was intended, whilst also fixing some of the glaring issues that I actually have with it. So if you have enjoyed today's video and have appreciated this mod list that I've created, consider liking, subscribing, and make sure you tell your mum about me. And I'll see you next time. Thank you.